I like to call myself a cockroach, right? Like I've had a lot of challenges, things have always trying to kill me, but I've never died, and it's been small steps towards where I'm at, and it's going to continue to be small and small steps. Studies show that when a child doesn't have a father figure, that they're more inclined to go to prison. And crazy enough, the two stepbrothers that I grew up with, they're both in prison. Right? Because there's a life-changing framework that I started to think about lately. And I said, why do things, now that I've been, 10 years into my personal development and growth journey, why are things starting to kind of happen a little bit faster than the last 10 years, where it felt like I was having to really force my way into any type of success or any type of happiness? Usually people use this concept for financial purposes, but I use it for life. And I think that it's all compound interest.
Hey there, it's Sandee Sgarlata. Get ready to dive deep into incredible stories of people who've taken life's challenges and turned them into a roadmap to happiness. On this show, we're not just talking about overcoming obstacles, we're uncovering the real, gritty secrets to living a life filled with peace, joy, and genuine happiness. This is Happiness Solved, so let's get started, because happiness is a choice, and the choice is yours. All right, Austin Gayne, such a pleasure to have you here today. How's it going for you?
Beautiful over in Nashville, and no complaints. Thank you for having me today, by the way. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And Nashville is such an amazing town, which is also where your publicist, Zach, is located, who I just absolutely adore. He's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, Zach, it's a funny story. I met him a couple years ago just through mutual connections. And it's crazy when you start working on the path of, just personal development, growing your businesses, then you get to that point where you're like, maybe I need a PR rep for your companies, your brand, and just someone that focuses on the outward visual appearance of yourself and obviously your company. So glad to start working with him finally, and glad to be here for sure.
Oh, wow. Thank you for being here. I love talking with young entrepreneurs, especially ones that can not even be 30 years old and to have the success that you've had, because what I want to do is like pick your brain so that my audience can learn from you and be like, oh my gosh, because what I do, Austin, I'm on the flip side, right? So you're 29 years old. I am going to be 59 years young. Okay. And what I do is I look at people and be like, oh my gosh, if they can do it, I can do it. Right.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about sharing my story, because I think a lot of times, whether it's social media or just, the neighbors down the street or the family member, we hear about these amazing stories of people doing amazing things. And I grew up the same way, hearing about all this, but I always had that feeling like, I don't know if I could do that, or I don't know if I'm smart enough. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about sharing my story is because I I went from $0 in sales for my business to $1, $2. I remember every single dollar along the way. And a lot of people I meet, they're very smart people. They go from zero to a million to 10 million and so on and so forth. And they have these massive gaps. I wish I was that smart. I'm not. I've gone from literal dollar to dollar to dollar, which puts me in a position to be able to help anybody, regardless of where they're at, because I've done every job in my company. I've seen every dollar of growth, and I just haven't met anybody else ever. And I don't know if it's a good thing I'm saying this, that's gone as slow and consistent upward growth as I have. So I'm just passionate to help people out, and I feel like I'm in a great place to be able to help people from where they currently are to where they want to go, because I remember every single step of the way, and I don't think a lot of people do. And I think that's something that's a little bit unique about my story is I like to call myself a cockroach, right? Like I've had a lot of challenges, things have always trying to kill me, but I've never died, and it's been small steps towards where I'm at, and it's going to continue to be small and small steps.
But you know what, Austin? That's life. That's business.
Right.
And the reason why they say most businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years is because they're not okay with these small incremental steps, or they get impatient. And there's no such thing as an overnight success.
That's
It's
correct.
all built incrementally. Right now I have the French Open on my television off to my right here, which I'm going to turn off because I'm doing a podcast right now. I just turned it off. But, you look at it, these tennis players, they didn't get here by just picking up a racket. They've been training these players that are in here. They've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. There's no such thing. It's all incremental steps. You don't just run a marathon. You have to do mile 1, and then you do mile 2. After about 6 weeks of
That's
training, then maybe you can get to mile 5 or 6, right? It takes a whole year to train for a marathon, so that by the time the marathon shows up, and by the way, you don't even run 26.2 miles before you run a marathon. The most you generally run is 20 miles. And then when it comes to marathon, then that's the first time you run 26 miles. So this game of life and this game of running a business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Right. And
exactly.
so I love to hear that from you, Austin, because you're you're an outlier, and in the sense that you have that mentality. But the people that go from 1 million to 10 million, those are outliers too, because that doesn't happen very often.
Exactly. And that's funny you mentioned the marathon aspect, because there's a life-changing framework that I started to think about lately. And I said, why do things, now that I've been, 10 years into my personal development and growth journey, why are things starting to kind of happen a little bit faster than the last 10 years, where it felt like I was having to really force my way into any type of success or any type of happiness? And now I'm at a place where things are starting to come a little bit easier. This type of framework really clicked with me, and it applies towards, like you said, physical or business or life. And this is usually, people use this concept for financial purposes, but I use it for life. And I think that it's all compound interest. So if people
Yes.
are familiar with compound interest is saying, hey, for the first X amount of years, the money you put into this investment, you're not going to really see any gains. And in fact, it's going to be very minimal. You're going to put money into this investment for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's not going to look like you made much progress. But all of a sudden, this is the beauty of compound interest. Year 15, year 20, there's this massive uplift of the interest that it really skyrockets. And that's why people like Albert Einstein have said that compound interest is one of the wonders of the world,
Yes.
because it's so unique. And for the longest time, I used to only associate compound interest with finances, but now I'm seeing that's why it takes 10 years. That's why they always say the 10-year overnight success, right? Or the 10-year athlete, or the 20-year this or that. And it's because you need so much time in order to start building that compound interest in whatever skill, business, or area you're focusing on. And now it's starting to really click for me that, hey, I've been, pursuing personal growth. I've been trying to run a business for basically 10 years now, and it's going way faster than it was prior, because now I have all those years of experience of skills, learning what to look for when you hire, how to manage your money, how to grow a company. Now it's starting to basically pay in dividends. And just like compound interest in the financial sense, all of my other areas of my life, my marriage, my friendships, my business, it's starting to see that massive upswing, where not just I'm noticing, but other people are noticing as well. So I just wanted to share that, because that was something that came to me recently, which is a really unique framework to think about compound interest outside of just finances, and more in terms of effort, skill, or whatever area you're putting your focus into. So I thought that might be valuable for your audience.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And it's so true. And it's funny, I was telling you that one of my business models, because of my relationship with the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network, I help experts to launch, grow, and monetize their podcast. And I share it all the time that once you start getting the traction with the downloads, so and this is a perfect example, and we'll just put it into numbers. So January of 2023, I was teetering around 1 to 2,000 downloads a month. And I started shifting my focus and sort of really paying attention to what I was doing, and showing up consciously to my interviews, and just really, just not that I wasn't before, but it was just more of a conscious effort. By April, I had almost 10,000 downloads. It started going up. And I use that example like compounding interest, that the downloads started, it wasn't going up by 10,000 a month. It was about that, but it was just like, boom. Now I'm getting 150,000 downloads a month, 18
Yeah,
months later. right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's because it's like that compounding interest, and it's the same way with personal development. If you start listening to a positive podcast, I release twice a week. Just listen to my show twice a week and you're going to get so much valuable stuff. It's not going to over, you don't have to listen every day, but you're going to get some seeds planted where you're like, oh yeah. And you may not notice it right away, but with that theory of compounding interest, it's going to show up. It's going to show up. All right.
Yeah.
I want to hear your story because you've kind of teased us a little bit. What is your story? Why you're so passionate about not only personal development, but how that affects you as an entrepreneur and your business. And we'll go into your businesses a little bit in greater detail. But how did your story? How did that really drive you to want to be an entrepreneur and to keep taking these baby steps all along the way?
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's a great question. And I personally like to talk about the story and the background more than the businesses, because anyone can go on your website, check out what you do. It's very simple.
Right.
We spend a lot
Right.
of time, but where I like to spend time is just kind of the upbringing, because I grew up in a lower class household in Southern California, Inland
Same.
Empire. I grew up
Mhm.
in Riverside, and with what does that mean and why is it important, right? It means that I didn't necessarily have any advantages that anyone else in America really had. Just to give you a perspective, my mom and my cousin are basically the only existing family members that I have. I have my grandparents are dead. On my biological father's side, he left before I was a child, so I have no family on a father's side. Within even just the family members I had, there was we went through some very tough times. We did some things we weren't proud of just to get by, and we kind of lived on a survival basis for a lot of the childhood. Luckily, I was, lucky enough to have a stepfather, and in retrospect, I didn't think so at the time, because we always butt heads with our parents or fathers, whatever. But I think that was something that was really helpful too, because studies show that when a child doesn't have a father figure, that they're more inclined to go to prison. And crazy enough, the two stepbrothers that I grew up with, they're both in prison. So
Wow.
we're both in the same household, grew up in the same area, had the same advantages, so to speak, we had the same exact environments. But why did we, out of the three of us, why am I the only one who kind of went a different way? And I tend to ponder that question a lot. And I think that some of it might be divine inspiration. I'm a believer. I'm a Christian, and that's something that maybe personally I feel like is a little bit divine. But at the same time, I also believe that there are certain things that impact you growing up. And, growing up, we were basically fighting for survival. And I didn't have what you would call the nuclear family. It was very, very trailer park. I just like to use the phrase like white trash. And I don't say that because there's anything wrong with the way I grew up. In fact, I have very fond memories of the way I grew up, but it really shaped me into fighting for survival, being persistent, not being entitled, and just knowing that if I was ever going to basically make it into something greater than I was, it was going to be on me. I wasn't waiting for handouts. I wasn't waiting for assistance. I wasn't waiting for a trust. I wasn't waiting for anyone to pull me and save me. When you're in those environments, you kind of realize that it's up to you. And I think that
Right.
was something that was very unique to me. And like I said, my stepbrothers, to this day, they're still looking for ways for other people to help them out. And something that I've always done ever since I can remember, I always accepted responsibility and always said, "Hey, if it's up to me, I never expected anything from anybody else." So that's in terms of like my childhood and my upbringing within my own family dynamic. That's how that impacted me. And then on the inverse end, once I went to school, I was always moving around initially, and then I got bullied a lot. Just, not like more, I'm not gonna, this isn't a victim story, but I got bullied just through, hey, this kid is breaking out, he has acne in the fifth grade, or hey, this guy's a little bit overweight, or hey, he's not a part of the cool kid group, whatever it was, right? I'm not gonna pretend I was a victim because there's kids that had it far worse than me. But those really shaped me into feeling like I was always an outsider as well. So I always felt like an outsider. I always had a chip on my shoulder, and I always felt like I had something to prove because I was insecure. When you grow up on survival, you obviously don't have money, you don't have status, you don't have anything that society deems as valuable. And when I went to school, it was no different. And in fact, I felt, like the black sheep of of my family. I felt like the black sheep of a lot of environments I was in. So that put that chip on my shoulder as well to kind of get going. So to summarize, I had the ability to accept responsibility for my future, realizing there was no handouts, and then coupled with the massive insecurities I developed, which led to ambition. So when you have ambition and you have that responsibility, you kind of take off, right? And for the first 5 years of my personal development growth, it was coupled out of massive insecurity. So initially, as soon as you start making money and you're not mature, you have insecurities. What do you want to do? The first thing I did, I went and go bought a Mercedes. It was I was like, look at me, all these things. And looking back, it's kind of funny because that's what I deemed as value. That's what I deemed that others would value into me. And now looking back, it's like, I know that's not the case, and it's kind of funny. So just to wrap up that story, I just grew up in an environment where I had to realize that I had to take responsibility for my life, and where I had a chip on my shoulder due to insecurities and not fitting in with, the status quo, which kind of caused me to pursue a path of not college, pursue a path that was different than most people around me, and ultimately just kind of be self-reliant and never give up, and kind of leans into what I said earlier about the cockroach mentality of just never giving up because I realized it was always on me. But now over the last 5 years, being in a very healthy relationship and an amazing marriage, being able to look back at my childhood, spot patterns, have just like yourself, being heavily invested into personal development, I've been able to pick out those things that were wrong with my character and just things I struggled with and start mending and fixing those things. So now I'm very confident moving forward with my life. You know, as I eventually become a father, as my company grows and I have many more employees under me, that I'll just be the best leader and the best father, family member, friend, because I was able to look back at those childhood wounds and traumas and actually fix those through intentional personal development.
I love it. Well, a lot of what you're talking about is being accountable.
Yes,
I mean, accountability is so key, not only in personal development, but as a leader, right? And then that kind of goes into authenticity. And thank you for being so authentic and vulnerable today and sharing that. Um, but as a leader, that you have to be accountable, but you also have to be authentic with your, because it's don't, a lot of people will say they're going to do things, but their actions don't follow it. Right. It's like, don't do as I say, do as I do. Right. And lead by example, that kind of thing. And that's kind of what I heard a lot from what you were saying from your story. Yeah.
exactly. And there was, I don't like to use the word pivotal moments because I think, like I said, everything builds on top of each other. But something that did help me out was when I was a teenager, I found someone online, and this is one of the benefits of the internet is you're able to find people that you wouldn't normally run into in your life, especially where places where I came from. And that person ultimately changed my life just really I never knew him like in terms of like I wasn't friends, I wasn't directly mentored, but just through online, I was able to get mentored. And then, sadly enough, the time when my life started to shift out and I was able to wanting to start building a relationship with that person, he passed away. But it was just one of those moments where I really look back now and I think like, you can have self-responsibility, you could have ambition or drive, but having someone to kind of help guide your path and tell you what to do, or just to give you some direction of where to go, because ambition is a double-edged sword. It could take you to dark places and it can take you to great places. So in addition to having those qualities, like you said, responsibility and ambition, I really think it was really beneficial for me to have a positive direction of where I wanted my life to go as well.
Well, having a mentor in your life is huge. And, they say, you are, well, I'm going to mess this quote up. Let me just paraphrase it, but you're the sum of the five people that you surround yourself with. And who you surround yourself with is going to make a difference. So if you're hanging out all day, my son and I talk about this all the time because he just graduated from college, and fortunately he does have a full-time job. But I was like, if you just hung out with people that all they want to do is play video games all day, you're never going to amount to anything. You're just going to be sitting there playing video games. You want to surround yourself with people who have ambition and who are working or starting their own thing. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. Just, own your job, get a great job and own it and be the best you can possibly be in that role. Right.
Yeah, and Sandy,
Um,
you nailed it when you said that. And the biggest hack that I've learned lately that has really paid far more dividends than ever is this, right? Is exactly what you just said about surrounding yourself with people that can, that can basically raise your standards of living and also be able to help you when you're basically making mistakes. And, one thing I will say, and this might sound like a controversial statement, but one thing that I regret doing was leaning too far into personal development books for too long. I feel like everything has a cycle. And what I mean by this, because there's going to be the people like myself who have hundreds of self-help books that are going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. But here's where I found something recently that it's a little bit controversial. I believe that initially, when you first start off with on the personal development journey, we have a lot of limiting beliefs and we have a lot of things we
yes.
need to fix internally. And I feel like you basically have to read personal development. You have to rewire your brain in order to have a healthier outlook on life and start to basically make progress. But what I did was, that probably took me 2 or 3 years. But then I kept doing that, repeating that same cycle for 7, 8, 9 years up until about 6 months ago. And my progress was a lot slower than a lot of my peers. And I was trying to figure out why that was. And the reason was I leaned too heavily onto only self-help and personal development books when I should have also done exactly what you just said and surrounded myself with people who are much smarter, wiser, stronger, better than myself. And what I've done, the massive shift, and if anyone listening to this gets one thing from this podcast, immediately try to get around people that are better than you. And I will tell you specifically towards business, right? I've made the biggest leaps and bounds over the last 6 months because I started paying people on websites like Mentor Pass or Intro or some of these other websites where you could pay somebody a couple $100 for a half hour, an hour of their time. They'll answer any of your questions. And since then, I was like, oh, wow, like I would have never figured this out on my own because I'm not that smart. And these people helped me out in 20 minutes of my time. So ever since I started to do that, my progress in business and finances and life has skyrocketed because before that, again, a double-edged sword about being self-reliant and taking responsibility. You almost don't want to ask people for help because you think, oh, I have to do all of this myself. I have to figure it out myself. But there's a beautiful quote I love, and I forgot who said it, but I'm only as great as I am because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And for me, what that meant was, okay, I can really only level up my life in every area if I talk to people who are smarter than myself. So the takeaway, the biggest hack that I've made was, limiting my time on personal development books and self-help books, and instead filling in that time with talking to experts and very smart people and people that are just much wiser than myself in the areas I wanted to improve. And for me, that has made all the difference.
I love it. Such great advice, Austin, because yeah, it's kind of like I listened to an episode of Joe Rogan who I can't remember the author's name, but her book is called Bad Therapy. And it was a really interesting conversation because while therapy is very important,
Yes.
it's the amount of time. And the reason that she wrote this book is because today you have, and I'm going to use a very high level example of, your 15-year-old daughter breaks up with her boyfriend and she's devastated. They put her in therapy and she's in therapy for 2 years talking about this breakup. That's not good for anybody, right? That's not healthy. That, you want to say, okay, you broke up with your boyfriend. Let's do 5 sessions and see how you are at the end of 5 sessions, because we probably only need to talk about this for a few hours and then you can move on. Right. And the same thing is true with personal development that, for me personally, I like to absorb myself into a book and then take my time reading it and really practice what they're talking about and spend 6 months on one book. And maybe once a week, I'll read a chapter and be like, okay, I'm going to apply what they're talking about and practice it, because personal development isn't a one-time, it's like happiness isn't a destination. It's a journey. It's a practice. It's something you have to practice every single day. Right. So, yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I believe like anything else, right? Everything has what you'd call diminishing returns, right? So initially when you start your journey out and you start reading self-help books, you're like your brain and your way of thinking has massively shifted because you're like, I've never thought of these ideas before. You're rewiring your brain to think more optimistically, have what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset.
Right.
But then after you develop that growth mindset, you basically hit a point of diminishing returns to where every self-help book doesn't really give you as much bang for your buck, so to speak, as the first 5, 10, 15, 20 books. So that's what I mean about self-help and personal development isn't just a book. It's not going to Barnes and Noble or the bookstore or Amazon and listening to another book. There's many different ways of personal development, and the most impactful one that like I said, that I really think people should lean into after they do have a growth mindset is through other people, finding people smarter than yourselves and just absorbing what we would call through osmosis and just in their presence. And the easiest way to think about it, it's like if you were to ask somebody, hey, do you think you would get more fit on your own, or if you consistently worked out with a group of Olympic athletes every day? And the obvious answer is, yeah, if I worked out with a group of Olympic athletes every day, I would get far better results than just on my own. And for some reason, there's just this like stigma where people continue just to read and do things on their own. But I think that society, life, family, everything like that I know in the human experience is much better when you do things with other people. And I don't think personal development is anything different.
Yeah, for sure. And you'd be surprised how many people, if even if you just have a couple of questions, reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and be like, I love what you're doing. Could you take 15 minutes sometime in the next few weeks? I just have some questions. I just want to pick your brain. I'm telling you that number one, what you're doing is you're stroking that person's ego, right? And they'll be like, oh, wow. Most people love to share their stories. They love to share. Or alternatively, start a podcast and get all these experts on and you can talk to them like I do, right? That's
No, that's exactly right.
I mean,
That's
I love
exactly
talking to people. Yeah.
No, that's so helpful too. Like you said, is actually a major hack. People don't even realize. Like I didn't even make a LinkedIn account until maybe like 8 months ago. And this another one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is great to connect with people. And a Bible verse that I kind of live off of is just like seek and you'll find, essentially.
Right.
And it's like and it's funny. I have there's a man named Jim Rohn. He used to be a motivational speaker. He's one of my favorites, and he said, "The finding is reserved for the seekers." And I always love that because it's like if you think, oh, I can't connect with so and so, they'll never respond to me, or I'll never get this or never get that. And it's like, well, like that's not true, because if you look, you'll find eventually. You just got to be persistent enough. But it's like just like that quote said, it's like the finding of whatever you're looking for is reserved only for the people seeking that thing. You're not going to get it unless you go out and search for it. So that's a great point on LinkedIn. And it's something, again, another great tip that I've learned over the last 8 months. And again, I've been in business for years now. So, you're way ahead of me on that one for sure.
Well, I got some years on you, as we already established a little bit ago. All right, let's talk about your business because I want to make sure we plug your products. So talk
Yeah.
about S-Force and SUPERX.
Yeah, great. So my first business was called Superfit, and here's a great story of how just because something fails, it doesn't mean it's over, right? It just might mean not now. So I remember the day I thought of my idea. I had gotten fired from my previous job, and I was living with my mom. And I'm in my early 20s. I already had a Mercedes. I had already made six figures, through a job, and I was pretty beat up on myself. So I started to think about a business idea. And for some reason, I always connected. I went to like an Avengers movie, and everyone knows these superhero movies. And I was like, hey, these actors, they're all very fit. They're all in shape. They're like, wow, I want to look like that. So I immediately made the connection that all these actors in these superhero movies, there's a connection between fitness and superheroes. So I started to draft ideas on how to do that. I thought of a supplement brand that was comic or superhero inspired. There was no licensing, there was no IP, nothing. It was just comic looking. And I tried to do it, and it was going to be a massive success. Well, turned out that wasn't the case. I didn't sell any of the product, and basically had to throw it away. And I spent my entire life savings on this product. And again, this is one of those pivotal moments where you could say, hey, because of adversity, like I'm going to fail, or you could say because of adversity, I'm going to succeed. So I put my head down, and over the next 2-ish years, I kept pivoting that idea. Then I went from supplements to selling PDF workouts of what I thought the actors did to get in shape. And then eventually I came to the idea of selling activewear that merged with pop culture characters, right? So think of Lululemon meets Marvel, right? They had a baby.
Mm.
That's what SuperX is, and that's the easiest way to describe it. SuperX merges pop culture and activewear. And up until now, there's never been, or there's not anyone who has dedicated their business to creating high quality activewear that's merged with pop culture. And we know this for a fact because if I was to go ask you, hey, go buy, a Batman workout shirt, you don't really have any options. Go buy a Iron Man workout shirt, go buy a Avengers workout tracksuit. You don't really have any options. And if you do, they're very inexpensive, they're very cheap, they don't last. It's a digital print. So where we fit into this equation is I found a niche or an opportunity in the market to sell high quality activewear that merged with pop culture characters. So and I had done that for a few years and I didn't have success. I didn't have capital to start. I had no experience with activewear, but we just kept building what we would call product market fit, meaning is my idea actually going to work in the market, right? We can love our ideas, and this is something I always tell everybody. We can fall in love with our ideas, we can romanticize about the ideas we have, but the reality is the market, they're unbiased. You have to
Will they pay
push.
for it? Will people pay for it? Right.
That's exactly right. So there's this gap between, a lot of people don't know this, between starting a business and finding product market fit that most people don't realize. So your entire objective is, okay, now that I have an idea, I need to find product market fit, which simply means what does the market want to buy? We figured out it was activewear. So I pivoted from changing my company name. I pivoted from product to product, but I finally hit on people want, and there is a demand for activewear that is licensed through these superheroes and pop culture characters.
Hmm.
So I did this for a few years to find product market fit, ups and downs, going off of loans. There's no success story there. But where we found success was more recent, even though I've been doing this for years, was September of 2023, which was only last year. We did our first licensed collaboration with Power Rangers,
Oh,
which,
wow.
if people, and again, is Power Rangers the most high level brand, the most relevant brand? No. But the great thing about that brand is it has a very strong, dedicated, and loyal fan base. And I launched with the anticipation of, hey, this will do okay. It did so well. It did more sales in 30 days than I had done in a year and a half prior combined. So
Wow.
that was the pivotal moment where I realized, okay, I've not only found product market fit, I found a product market fit for a massive opportunity. Because imagine if I could get better, hire the right people, do different types of properties and different brands. Imagine what I can accomplish. That was the idea that I had. So from 2023 until now, we've basically fully committed to doing licensed pop culture activewear. And since September of 2023, so that's only, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months, I'm proud to say we just launched our Assassin's Creed, which is a game
Yeah.
collection this month. And even better than that, most of you guys will know this one. We just signed with Disney to do exclusive products for the Marvel product category line. So
Whoa.
yeah, so that's something I'm really proud of.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And we're kickstarting our first project with them on the Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out in July, which has Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman in it.
I'm a huge Deadpool. I love Ryan Reynolds, but I love Deadpool. It's one of those movies I will watch. I've probably seen it 20 times. I love it.
It's a great movie. So
Great.
now that we've signed with Marvel/Disney, we just had meetings with Warner Brothers to basically start working with them for DC Comics, potentially Mortal Kombat, and then potentially Star Wars. And basically everything is now starting to open up. And it's no longer, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, where I feel like I'm having to smash in through walls like the Hulk. I feel like opportunities now are compounding in my favor because of what I've built into my company, the skill sets I've acquired, and basically just everything going for us now is basically on the uprise because I found product market fit. And like I said, that's where we're at right now. As of today, we found product market fit. We've signed a license agreement. It's now public with Marvel. And we're basically going to be working with brands like Warner and other brands this year. And I just foresee massive growth. And I'm super excited for SuperX, right? And I founded that company. And the key thing is, guys, like if you're listening to this, the idea that was my product market fit that seems really smart now, it wasn't my first idea for the same business. It was my third, fourth idea,
Yeah.
and I just never gave up. And if I had told myself, it was going to take me this long. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I would have done it, but I think that's what's required is what we talked about earlier is that compound interest of skill, persistence, getting the right idea at the right time. Those are things that you just have to stick through. And eventually you get to the point where people are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when we have these companies like Disney or we have these other companies like Warner Brothers telling us, oh, that makes a lot of sense for an idea that when I first thought of it years ago, people said it was dumb. It feels really good and it feels very validating. So, SuperX, we basically merge pop culture with high quality activewear.
I love it. That is incredible. Congratulations. That is so huge. And let me tell you what's really happening. You probably know this, but I'm gonna tell I'm gonna tell the audience what's really happening with Austin. So everything comes down to confidence, right? So you may not even most of the time we're not even aware that our confidence isn't where it needs to be. And I use confidence because that's what people can relate to. But from an energetic standpoint, it's where your energy is when you're so it may have been like, oh, I did this. Okay, it was Power Rangers. It was good. But what happened was you had a great month in sales. So what happened? Your confidence went up. But what really happened, Austin, is that energetically your frequency went up. Now, what happens when your frequency goes up? You bring more into it, right? So the universe doesn't understand good, bad, everything is neutral, right? So if you're putting out like, but then you get the sales and it's like, oh, it's great, you're going to get more of that. So because you had that success with Power Rangers, your frequency went up so high that of course you're going to attract everything back into your life. And the flow becomes there, the trust is there, you're letting things happen. There's no resistance, right? And it all comes down to your frequency, and you did it, and you keep going for it. And the next time we have a conversation, if you'll be back on my show, because you'll probably be like, oh, I don't need to do that now. I'm messing with you. You're going to be next, you're a millionaire now. You're going to be, next thing you know, you're going to be an 8-figure, a 9-figure, 10-figure. And
Yeah.
probably, let's give it a few years. I'm going to predict it. Somebody's going to purchase you and you're going to be sitting pretty, but before you're 35 years old. So good for you.
Yeah,
That's
I really
awesome.
appreciate it. And something you said too, something that I'm very something that's really shifted my perspective too. I talked to a lot of people about this, is kind of like you're saying, like the energy and we'll use words like manifesting and
Mhm.
kind of visualizing, where words I didn't really buy into prior to this. But once your confidence and your energy and like that, like you wanting to attract those things with confidence, because you could wish all day long, hey, I'm going to be successful, but if you don't have full confidence, and most importantly, if you do these things without an action plan, then
That's
I
right.
don't really feel like it's going to be really hard for you to do. So what shifted with me was I saw a path forward, and then it was coupled with those things you mentioned, a high frequency of energy, manifesting, and all these other types of like thought processes that are attracting good things into my life. So, but the only thing I would just implore people, don't like, don't sit in front of your mailbox and wish for a check to come into the mail. Have a plan with your manifesting, or have a plan with your positive energy. And when you couple those things, that's the key, in my opinion, to success. But you can't really do one without the other. If you have a good plan but no energy, you're not going to get very far. And if you have great energy with no plan, well, there's you can't really go anywhere. So
That's
those are the
right.
two things I feel like for me has really shifted, and I feel a lot of peace in my life because of it. Because the last 5 years, I've been just like I was when I was a kid. I've been fighting to survive. And finally, I'm in a place where I feel like I've just started the pathway towards prosperity, and it feels really good. And it feels really, really good. But I'll close out on my second business, S Force. This is I'll be short on this one. We make men's jewelry and watches. And basically, I didn't start this business. I actually acquired half of it. I have a business partner with that business. And this is a business where I was a customer, oddly enough, years ago, and I was an affiliate of. So when I was broke and I had no money, I got fired. I lived with my mom. I actually went to this company to try to make money as an affiliate. And it's kind of crazy how full circle now I'm part owner of this company, and I'm able to try to turn this into a very profitable and much bigger company and just kind of take it where I think it could go. And the point is just like now I feel really grateful to have the company that I initially founded, which most people's first companies don't. to be on the path towards success and massive success, and then to be a part of a company that I was a customer of, and at one point I had to use to basically earn some extra cash just to get by, is now I'm now a part owner. So I'm just super excited for both of those companies and what we're going to do with both of them.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, Austin, anytime you want to come back on, would love to have you. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. Austin's information is going to be in the show notes. Follow him on Instagram. That's going to be there as well. And best of luck to you. You're killing it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time, and I'd love to be back. I feel like we have a lot we could talk about for a long
Oh my
time,
gosh,
but
we could talk for hours.
yep, we're on the same wavelength, and I feel like we'll save that for another episode. But thank you so much for having me, and yeah, guys, if you need anything at all, I always tell people this: I'm someone who's reachable. Reach me, hit me up on Instagram, message me, and I will respond 100%.
Love it. Thank you so much, Austin, and best of luck to you. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and as promised, I'd like to give you more details of what you can expect as a member of the Happiness Solved exclusive community. First, you'll have access to a treasure trove of extra podcast episodes. These episodes dive deeper into the topics we discuss, featuring additional expert interviews only found here. But that's not all. As a member, you'll also get access to a series of mindset training sessions. These recordings are tailored to help you understand the how and why your mindset is the most important asset you have, empowering you to achieve your personal and professional goals. And for those of you looking to find a moment of peace in your busy lives, we've got something special: exclusive guided meditations. These sessions are crafted to help you relax, refocus, and recharge. Whether you're a meditation guru or just starting out, there's something here for everyone. Becoming a member is more than just accessing extra content. It's about joining a community of like-minded individuals, all on a journey to live life to its fullest and become the best possible version of you. So how can you join? It's simple. Go to happinesssolved.supercast.com and sign up. Don't miss out on this opportunity to deepen your journey with us. Again, that's happinesssolved.supercast.com, and it will also be in the show notes. I am so grateful you're a part of our Happiness Solved family, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your continued support. Again, I am so grateful for you, and I hope that you and your family are healthy and safe, and that your lives are filled with peace, joy, and happiness. Take care, everyone.